You're watching Talk Man, and I'm here, CJ. Welcome back to another album ranking, and today's album ranking will be of the mighty Deicide, one of the best fucking death metal bands of all time. Yeah, 12 studio albums, every single one of them I like, but I'm not going to waste any time. Let's get right into it. I'm going to start this at 21 seconds. Here we go. Number 12, In Torment, In Hell. I think I have it right here. Yes, right here. In Torment in Hell, their 2002 album, easily the worst Deicide album, and most people I've talked about in the community agree. The album still is fun, but yeah, it is off. It's not up to par with what they were doing before. I give this one a 7 out of 10. Still a really good album. Actually, still a really good album. The song I prefer off of In Torment in Hell is Christ Don't Care. Absolutely love that song. I think that this album has some very underrated songs on here, like Let It Be Done and Worry in the House of Thieves. Those are two other songs that I really like from that album. But yeah, number 11, one that I do not own on CD, which is Incinerate Him from 2000, the album right before In Torment in Hell. This is nowhere near as good as the first four, don't get me wrong. I'm a fan of this album, as I like how it's a slower pace. But the speed is what I prefer on Deicide. The album is still as blasphemous as ever, with the lyrics being quite good. Overall, a fun experience, 10 out of 10. Everything from here and above are 10 out of 10s. The best song on this album, obviously, is Bible Basher. There's no way that that Bible Basher is not going to be the best song on this album. It is the best song on this album, and there's no debating that, really, with me. I honestly think that's the best one. Incinerate Him at number 11. Number 10, Overtures and Blasphemy. I don't really get the hate for this album. Yeah, I hear a lot of people hating on this record, and they say that this is the worst album that Deicide ever did. I don't agree with that. It sounds like a Deicide album. It's everything the ones ranked higher has, but yeah, it doesn't do it as good, and that's why it's here. 10 out of 10. The best song here is Compliments of Christ. You would think a name of Compliments of Christ would be kind of weird for Deicide, but if you read the lyrics, it is not complimenting Christ at all, and is quite doing the contrary. Yeah, it's quite doing the contrary. Number 9, let's go into number 9, which is Till Death Do Us Part from 2008. There is nothing wrong with this album. It's just Deicide has better albums than this one. That's all that this is, with it being at number 9. The main thing that stands out on this one is the change in sound, as this release strays away from the Deicide formula before. The change in sound is also why people seem to regard this one as one of their worst, me included. I think that this one is near the bottom of the list, but it's still quite fun to listen to and still perfect all the way through, and I could listen to this one all day. There's nothing really wrong with it. Glenn Benton's vocals are kind of like weird on this record, but that's like, it's more of like a Cannibal Corpse style vocal, kind of like a Corpse Grinder style vocal instead of what was before. But yeah, this is a pretty good album all in all. 10 out of 10. The best song here is Hate of All Hatreds. Another great banger from Deicide. Next one is going to be Stench of Redemption from 2006. A very brutal album in the Deicide catalog. The first album after the departure of the Hoffman brothers. And well, Deicide picked up where Scars of the Crucifix left off. One that I had at the bottom last time. At 41 minutes, it's Deicide's longest effort to this point, and it never gets boring. Quite to the contrary, this album also features Jack Owen, famous for being part of Cannibal Corpse or with Cannibal Corpse. 10 out of 10. The best song here on this album is Homage for Satan. Yeah, it's just an absolute classic. That song is an absolute classic, and probably everybody that has ever checked out Deicide, or that was one of the songs that they first checked out, because that's like one of their most popular songs, and it's like the one that's most recommended. And here's where the controversy comes in. Yeah, I did push Legion up a little higher, but it is at number 7. Legion from 1992, their second album, a sloppy but fantastic mess. It's very sloppy, but that's why we like this album. That's why we like this one. It's very grimy, it's very raw, it's very brutal, and Legion is a fan favorite, and it took me time to realize why that was. As years ago, I considered Legion one of the worst Deicide albums, but now I have to say I disagree with my old self and quite like it. I don't know if it was me seeing this album played from front to back live or what it is. I love this album for how all over the place it is. The song Satan Spawn, the Keiko Demon, just fucking awesome start to this album. But yeah, Legion is still my least favorite of their 90s material, though, and my least favorite of their first 4. 10 out of 10. My favorite on Legion is Behead the Prophet, No Lord Shall Live. That's just an absolute, it's one of the best songs. I think it even featured on the greatest hits. Don't quote me on that. But yeah. Number 6, To Hell with God from 2011. Modern death metal classic. I know it may be controversial to have this one ahead of Legion, but it is what it is. It's my opinion. Completely come at me in the comments section. I've been called worse names for my opinions on the internet, but the main thing this has is the intensity of the new sound I like from Deicide. The speed has returned, the vocals are as good as ever, and the instrumentation is breathtakingly technical on this record. 10 out of 10. My favorite song on Hell to God is Conviction. It's just, yeah, it's one of the heaviest songs that they've ever done. It's fantastic. And yeah, this one sounds like no other album as well. It has a different sound than any of their albums, so yeah, it might be a little off-putting for some people that expect a certain sound from Deicide, but this is going to be a completely different sound. Now we go to number 5, top 5, Scars of the Crucifix from 2004. I've always had a soft spot for this album. No, I haven't. I once really despised this album and never listened to it. I don't know why I wrote that. As it's reminiscent of the first 4, again, it can be said that it's reminiscent of the first 4, but it's one more technical with the sweep solos, and the speed of the album is the fastest to this point, and the songs are fantastic. The guitar parts are pretty neat and tidy, unlike the previous In Torment and Hell. Yes, this is the one that followed up the In Torment and Hell album, and it's a huge improvement. It sucks that this is the last album to feature the Hoffman brothers, as they really added something to Deicide with their crazy over-the-top riffs and now sweep solos that they did on this album and the one at number 1. You kind of already know what number 1 is now. But yeah, the best song here is Fuck Your God. One of the best songs that Deicide has ever done, and one of my favorites to listen to. One of my favorite Deicide songs ever. Number 4, In the Minds of Evil. Yes, I said this one right this time, because in my last video that I ranked Deicide, I said something else. But yeah, it confused the hell out of me, but yeah. This one may surprise many for being this high on the ranking, but I've always liked this album for some reason. Maybe it's because it's reminiscent of the old stuff. This one was hard to place, as it almost was at number 3. Which it was 3 years ago in my ranking of Deicide. Yes, this one was number 3. Now it's number 4. It moved one down. But yeah, that's how it works over time. We get different music tastes, as Scars of the Crucifix moved up from like number 11 all the way to number 5. Because yeah, I've got more time with it. Minds of Evil is reminiscent of some of their older works and is basically back to the roots type of record. The vocals are pretty pronounced with being able to make out what are being said, which is like their first 4 albums. It's reminiscent. The guitar tone is fantastic and overall an amazing listen. 10 out of 10. My favorite song is Beyond Salvation. It has that rhyming thing going on that I absolutely loved from like their later 90s stuff. Yeah, the later the rhyming stuff is the kind of Deicide that I kind of go with usually when I want to listen to this band. Number 3 is Deicide 1990, their first debut. This is kind of blasphemous for having it at number 3 because, yeah, most people have this near like number 1 or number 2, but yeah, a death metal classic and one of the most grime-ridden and blasphemous death metal albums that will ever melt the brain and with speed and raw fucking intensity. If most death metal fans were to compile a list of the best death metal albums of all time, this album would probably show up on most of their lists. And it embodies everything a death metal album should be. Fast, loud, groove-ridden, and disgustingly brutal. This album is the start of what to come from the 90s Deicide. It has this sound of number 1 and number 2, but it's not yet as refined as number 1 and number 2. 10 out of 10, my favorite off of the debut is Oblivious to Evil. Absolutely fucking love that song. Just everything about that fucking song for some reason. It's not even the greater hit from that record either. It's one of the B-side type songs, but yeah. Number 2, you're gonna see what number 1 is now. Number 2, Once Upon the Cross from 1995. This album and the album at number 1 are 2 of the tightest musically of any death metal albums I've ever heard. Some of the most catchy death metal ever. Some of the, like, if death metal was, I'm not gonna say that you're gonna start in the comment section, but yeah, some of the most catchy death metal you'll ever come across, and it'll get stuck in your head pretty often. Like, every time you listen to it, it basically gets stuck in your head. Once Upon the Cross is 10 times better than anything previously mentioned on this list, and this opinion may be controversial. Compared to Legion, the songwriting improved. Glenn Benton's vocals got more brutal, and overall the band got way better in every way. Absolute bangers all the way through this album. My favorite song here is When Satan Rules This World. Absolutely a fantastic song, and crushing every time I play it, or every time I hear it. It's amazing. And that leaves us with number 1. Serpents of the Light from 1997, my favorite album ever released. This is the best, in my opinion, the best album ever released. Not in metal, not in anything, and anywhere. It's by far the album I've listened to the most throughout, about all through my listening and my enjoyment of music. This is probably the best album I've ever heard. The Serpents of the Light has the best guitar tone I've ever heard on a death metal album. The songs are all bangers all the way through, one after the other. They just steamroll all the way through the record just as fast as possible. I think it's like 29 minutes, but it's just like the best 29 minutes of your life, honestly. The vocals are Glenn's best performance on this album, with his vocals being as harsh and unrelenting as ever. The lyrics are delivered pretty attached to the guitars, with it being like death metal poetry. Just the riffs are phenomenal, and the guitar solo is ripping through and leading into more brutal riffs and rhyming lyrics. Best song Deicide ever wrote is Bastards of Christ. It comes right after the Serpents of the Light title track. It's just back-to-back. It's just back-to-back bangers, honestly. This is the best. This is my favorite album of all time. And I know a lot of people probably disagree with this list, but yeah, Serpents of the Light is probably my favorite album to listen to of all time. And to touch on the rhyming part, yeah, it's basic. It has rhyming all the way through this stuff. It's just yeah, it's just fucking amazing. It's just an absolute fucking amazing record. So, that's how I rank Deicide. Hopefully everybody liked it. Hopefully people aren't going to get too pissed off, because this is one of the rankings that people got pretty pissed off at when I did last time. Yes, Legion moved up. It moved up 2 spots. It was at number 9 last time, so hope everyone liked it.